Okay, so hi guys and welcome back to the channel. This week we're going to do another episode with a filmmaker. Today we're going to speak to Josh Rowe, who I worked with on Robopriest, the most recent short that I've worked on. I really wanted to speak to Josh about this because as a first-time director, there was going to be a lot of things that he learned on this project. There was going to be things he didn't know going in that he does know coming out, and it was going to be really interesting to get a first-time perspective on something that I've done quite a few times now. And I think it was a really, really interesting look at getting into the business for someone that, you know, perhaps as a student, perhaps wants to kind of dive into making their first short film. Well, Josh has just done it, so hopefully we can learn a lot from him. So I won't keep you any longer. Let's get straight into it. Here is a 20-minute conversation with Josh Rowe. Hi guys, I'm here today with Josh Rowe, a good friend and colleague of mine who I've worked on recently on Robopriest with, a short film, which was his sort of directorial debut, if that's the right phrase. So I'm just going to jump into a few questions with Josh now, and sort of we're going to chat a bit about the project. So if you want to introduce yourself, Josh, and just let us know who you are and what you do for a living.
Yeah, sure. My name's Josh. At the minute, I'm working at the, well, right now I'm not been furloughed, but you know, when life was normal, when life was normal, I worked at the Epstein Theatre. I'm the assistant manager there. I've always sort of had an interest in, you know, films, writing, plays, the whole thing. I used to work with a film charity called Clapperboard, who help young people, particularly young people with mental illness and mental health issues, express themselves through film. Yeah. It's how I met through them. I met Bill Elms, who you also know, who then went to work for him, and he got me into the theatre. So it's all sort of typical, like Liverpool's a village. Everyone,
Bill's a big name on the Liverpool theatre scene, isn't
he? Yeah, he is. PR, market, and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So, he was a really good guy to know. He got me the job at the Epstein. But I've always loved film. Like my parents, maybe they shouldn't have done it, but they let me watch like The Godfather and Reservoir Dogs when I was like 10 and 11.
That's a good introduction, even if it's a bit young, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Probably could explain, you know, some aspects of my personality, like, but I'm glad they did. I've always loved stuff like that, and then through that got into like the likes of Mark McDonough, his brother John McDonough, and just been wanting to get involved professionally or get some experience at least in the world of, you know, filmmaking, production, directing. So that's why I hit you and Sam up and said, let's do something.
Well, that kind of, I mean, you kind of answered my second question there, which was what made you jump into short films and writing. So, I mean, yeah, you've kind of just said it, but so when would you say you started actually like writing and trying to be a part of that process?
Do you know what? It's funny. I can say exactly when, because I think for ages I grew up like reading loads. You know, I loved Terry Pratchett, Douglas Adams. Then they got me. Then I went into all of the kinds of authors through that. But I think at the back of my head, I'd thought for a while I would like to do something like that. You actually be involved in the creative industries or write or whatever. Yeah. But I'd never put it together. And then I'd just been to seeing Glorious Bastards when it first came out back in 2009. Yeah. And one of my mates, Cormac, who I collaborate with a lot, like he's a writer as well. He was just talking about like how he messed about, he wrote some short stories and that. And then the penny just kind of dropped. It was like, hang on, like Quentin Tarantino was just some nobody in like a video store writing. Yeah. His mate Kevin Smith, who did the Clerks films, etc., is with the same story. You know, he was just some absolute nobody who started writing and then hit it big. So it's kind of like, you know, I probably thought maybe that to be a, you know, like a writer, you have to follow some really structured path. Like they took you out of school and tell you you've got a kid and all that, and you go off and get like tutored and mentored. And then I just kind of realised then anyone can do it, and so just got into it through that. And the first year, you know, it's starting to come together a bit now, but for the first about 8 years it was a load of crap. But you know, as everyone says, you've got to write the shit out of you or whatever. Yeah. Not that I'm saying what I'm doing at the minute's golden, but there is definitely a look back on those early days and Jesus Christ.
Yeah, well, it's a long process, isn't it? Like with anything, you can't expect to be great at it straight away. You have to kind of work up towards, you know, the better stuff, don't you? I think that's the same in any field or industry, really.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, already. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of that. I was going to make a comment about what I learned on Robopriest then, but I know that's a later question.
Yeah,
so
we'll jump to that later. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
one for now.
Yeah, bro. Well, that does sort of lead into the next question, which was, so where did the idea for the short we worked together on, Robopriest, where did that idea come from? Is it something you've had for a while, or?
Yeah, I mean, with Robopriest, it's had a bit of a sort of tortured, it was a very long and complicated birth sort of thing, where originally I think I had the idea, I think I was walking through town or something, and I had this like image in my head of like, that Zoltan the Great in Big, the coin operated automated magician thing.
Yeah.
I had an idea for that, but it was going to be like a spiritual advisor, like a priest, and people put he's like coin operated, and then it was kind of the thing of, oh well, he's the idea, and then like the main interesting idea there is that it's this guy's program to be a believer and believe in heaven and a soul, but what if he's having a bit of a crisis of confidence because he can't believe that he himself has a soul, so he thinks he's getting a raw deal, and then kind of had that idea. It was knocking around in the back of my head for a few months. And then a mate of mine, Mal, he's like a mate, I've known him for ages. We went to school together. He introduced me to two really nice lads he knows, Carlos and RJ, who they're great. They do a load of, they're both sort of in the world of the theatre specifically. They do a lot of things locally to help unknown local artists get a foothold, get some experience, and they did this thing called the Coach House, which was literally, they got 50 people, probably not even 50, 30 people together in their house, the shared house they lived in with a few friends, and in the living room they put on plays, 3-man plays, 15 minutes each. Yeah. And so I wrote that for that, but then Carlos and RJ, they do a ton of stuff. Like they both managed to cram it into their schedules, and they just got overwhelmed. They both had jobs. RJ was doing a master's, so they sort of had to say, like, right, guys, as much as we love this and want to carry on doing it, we're just gonna have to take a break. Yeah. And me being the impatient, hyperactive child I am, was just like, no, I can't. Sorry, I need to get this done.
Need to crack on, yeah.
So I contacted. Yeah, exactly. So I contacted Sam and just said, I know you want to do some, because me and Sam obviously know each other. Yeah. And we'd had the conversation previously, and I just said to him, I know you want to do this, I want to do this, let's get it done. And then again, things fell through with Sam because he got a job offer from Wales. So,
so just to clarify, this ties into last week's episode where we spoke to Sam Birch. So that's who we're talking about. Me and Sam and Josh all know each other.
Sorry,
sort of through the same time. No, just wanted to let everyone know that that's Sam Birch we're talking about. Yeah. Yeah. No, it sounds great. Yeah.
But yeah. So
cool.
It's been a bit of a. And yeah, it's I forgot what I was going to say. Edit that part out.
Okay. Well,
for an answer.
We'll move on to the next question then. So what were your roles? Because I know you had a few on Robopriest then.
Obviously, I wrote the original script for it. Then, I mean, in terms of production, that was a bit of a hodgepodge, wasn't it? It was just everyone doing everything, like typical small film.
I was going to say, as it usually is at this level, yeah.
Yeah, it was just, obviously Sam, in terms of production, the production side of things, helped out a bit. I mean, obviously you found the church, the cast and that brought like their own, bit of props, clothes, all the rest of it. Yeah, we all just sort of threw in together. Yeah. And then obviously it was my first time directing anything, it's something I've wanted to do for a while. And again, I think I liked it because it's how I'd work anyway, but also because, again, for the first time, who doesn't really know what they're doing and isn't that confident, it was a better way of working. Yeah. But it was really collaborative with a lot of input from you'd come up with ideas, Kate and Paddy were doing the sound and the filming would come up with ideas, the cast would. So I did direct it, but there was a lot of input from other people, which I liked anyway and was glad of. Yeah. I think it worked out well.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, well, that leads perfectly into... What would you say? What were your thoughts on the film, on your first short film retrospectively? So looking back on it, completed, what would you say how do you feel about it?
Do you know what? I'm really glad we made it. I had an absolute ball making it. I really did. It was so much fun, and it's nice to have a finished product and all the rest of it. Definitely. But I'm one of those people. I'm my own worst critic. So as soon as I do it, and I'm not like the cast were all great. I had such a good time working with them. The camera work you guys did, the special effects were done by a guy called Kai Jolly, who's Bill's now fiance. They were all great. So I'm not in any way impugning anything anyone did. Also, shout out to Tom. Is it Tom Forfer? Is that his name?
So Forfer.
Did the sound?
But put together some great music, didn't he?
Yeah, no, he did. He did a really good job. And I mean, again, free. We did it all free of charge. So really lucky to get to be able to work with people like that. But again, I am my own worst critic. So as soon as it was a great, it was a rush having it done, boxed off, making it was a lot of fun. But then at the end of it, when I was looking back, as soon as I started watching it back, I was just like, oh, why did I do that? Why didn't I do that? And,
okay, so let's talk about some. Obviously, we're not going to talk about cast or crew, but what in terms of some specific things that you maybe would change in terms of perhaps the writing, perhaps for directing. Was there anything that kind of comes to mind that that you specifically are thinking of or didn't look so positively on after the fact? Oh yeah.
Do you know what? Honest to God, like as I said, my own biggest critic, and you're going to regret asking that question. I'll have you for half an hour. It's things like, in terms of the writing, I think, especially with the things I've written since, I've taken more drafts to get it done and make sure the through line of the story works properly. Because I think with Robopriest, it seemed to change a bit halfway through. In the first half of the film, he seems a bit concerned with with not having a soul and his fear of dying and the crisis of faith that causes. And then in the last third, when he resolves things with Kim, the underlying issue he seems to be discussing or dragging up transitions more into like a question of free will and you being your own person. So there's a bit of a disjoint there that I probably, if I would have been writing now, I would have taken more time to make sure that the resolution at the end properly ties it all together. And there's it's the same consistent theme. Like it's got that one narrative backbone going through it all.
Yeah, rather than sort of slightly jumping between two big ideas, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. I would have taken a lot more time there and focused in on that and hopefully got to the bottom of that and fixed it. I think the big mistake I made with the directing was something, and I think again, as much of a tendency as I have to criticise myself, I think it's fair to say that this is something everyone does.
Oh, absolutely.
When you do something for the first time, you focus in on I was focusing in on like the minute details and forgetting about the bigger picture, and it was something that, I think the cast at the time sort of had to drag me out of a bit. Be like, okay, but like I'd be focusing in on the way a particular actor would say a certain word or their body language and like a particular story beat, and I'd be forgetting about what's the point of the scene as a whole. I'd be losing track of what the scene's meant to convey. And forgetting that the little individual small moments matter, but they matter because they build up to the whole.
Absolutely. To be honest, I'm glad you said that because I think it's a really, really interesting point where, and I think it's something that I've noticed on a lot of the short films that I've worked on, or even sort of directed myself, is exactly that. There is a tendency to get so focused on this second to second detail that, as you said, you can really kind of almost completely forget why that thing is being shot for the film. You said it perfectly. What that scene's meant to do. What it's trying to kind of accomplish in the whole script. You can really kind of easily get too drawn into the nitty gritty and lose that, because at the end of the day, that is more important, isn't it? What the scene's doing, what it's trying to achieve in the film is ultimately well more important than how a specific line is, it might be said or something like that, and it can have a much bigger effect. So yeah, I think that's that interesting. If I'm just going to interject one thing myself personally that I felt from sort of looking back at the project retrospectively was the importance of pacing. And I know this is something that as you've said, for someone that hasn't been writing stuff that's been made for a long time. I don't know if it's something that you noticed or would take forward, but for me, I felt that the film came in about 25 minutes long, maybe just under. And I remember sort of later on in the editing process, I sat down and kind of went through and marked each scene. And there's scenes, there's big scenes that are sort of 6-7 minutes long, like, and then tiny scenes in between. And the big, because of the premise of this film is essentially conversations with the priest. Those big scenes for me kind of at times felt like they were dragging a bit, and it just kind of, the pacing of the whole thing kind of fell apart a little bit, because it was basically 3 big scenes with like these tiny little bits of action between them, and I just think that if the film had been, it wasn't something we could have done on the day or in the edit, but I think in the writing, if we'd done it again now, I wonder whether or not the film would be 10 minutes shorter, and it would be, and it would be, you know what I mean, just really kind of, the conversation would be more to the point. It's very difficult to kind of, to say that without obviously putting it into practice, but for me, I felt the pacing had issues as well, which I know that personally, taking forwards from some stuff I've tried to write since, I've been very aware of this. If the film has 10 scenes, one of them can't be 10 minutes long. Unless there's a real reason for it. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, like something. You can have those one scene that's disproportionately longer, but it's got to serve a purpose. So there's got to be a reason for it being that way. It's got to feel like a conscious. Yeah, I mean, do you know what? To be honest, I think that is, to go back to the writing of it, I think I would totally agree with what you just said there. And I think the problem was, I was a bit lazy in terms of, because I was just so eager to get it out and get it done. I rushed it. Originally, it was written as a play, so to have it be 3 static conversations,
very true,
was no problem. That was the nature of it, and there were no sort of interlinking or connecting scenes. So I think what you're basically describing there is what happened, where I had a play that was desperate to turn into a film. I didn't properly get in and crack the story and get it all nice and neat and unified, and also I didn't make the most of the medium we were moving into. I reshuffled things a bit and added in a few little short scenes to make it more cinematic, and I think that's probably why you got the result that you did, because it was like, some sort of like Frankenstein's monster approach.
Between 2 different mediums.
A play, into a film. So,
well, to be honest, I'm sort of glad that is the case, because I knew that, but I'd forgotten about that. I'd forgotten that it was originally, a theatre script, and yes, that kind of makes a lot of sense for how the pacing comes out in the film, doesn't it? As you're saying, so I think that's quite important, actually. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was definitely a case of. I mean, I'm not even sure you call it laziness. It was more just, it was like impatience on my part. I just wanted to get it done and get filming.
And also, as you said, having it being the first, I think the first short film you'd written, or one of the first anyway. Correct me if I'm wrong, but then again, it's just the experience of the medium, isn't it? Me and Sam in our conversation last week spoke at length about how specific the medium is. It sounds stupid, but because obviously it's a short film, but it's so different to a film. The way you get in and get out, and the amount of kind of information you can get across, and the amount of detail you can or can't get into a short film is very different. I think the conversation scenes in Robopriest in a feature film would sit absolutely fine, and they would actually work well, and especially as you said, with perhaps some Tarantino-esque long conversation scenes that are really kind of giving a lot of backstory and stuff like that would be great in that. But I think in the short medium, they almost just don't work, because there's not enough happens. If you get to the end of the scene, you go, okay, well, what changed from the start of the scene to the end of the scene? That's maybe a couple of lines, really. And obviously the dialogue's important. It's it's important that the dialogue's there and that you're building out the character, but not enough is happening, if that makes sense. And I think that's what short films specifically, it's one of the reasons they're really difficult, because you have to prioritize something happening a lot of the time.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I'm working on a few things now, as I think I've mentioned to you. And the last thing I finished writing was a lot. It's a little bit longer than Robopriest, but it is just very punchy. Like, I think the longest scene is about 2-3 minutes at the very most. And with the thing I'm writing now at the minute, which is actually a sequel to Robopriest, I'm trying to do the same. It's like, I heard the expression once. I think it was William Goldman, the screenwriter, who said, and it applies to everything, but particularly short film, come in to the scene as late as possible and leave as early as possible. Like, just get the absolute essence of what you need, and don't.
No, it's true. It's so easy to kind of sit in a scene and kind of just mill around in it for a long time, isn't it? But you really, I suppose it's one of the things with film in general, whether it's short or feature length. As you said, for the most part, with most styles of films, you only get what you need from the scene and very little else. Unlike obviously like in a book, for example, you might get a lot of kind of descriptive, backstory and stuff. You tend to just get the important stuff. I mean, I watched Batman Begins last night, which I've not seen in a long time, and I was actually thinking about it even watching that. It was like there's so many scenes that are just 3 or 4 minutes long, absolute max, and they do what they're trying to do, and you move on to the next scene, and you move on to the next scene. You know what I mean? And you're constantly moving. And I think even in short films, that can be important. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely, as you say, because when you've got such little, you know what I mean, like most short films are under, half an hour. If you've got less than 30 minutes to do what you've got to do, you've got to absolutely make sure everything's as tight as possible. Looking back on, I mean, again, it's gone right back to the very basis of it, but with Robopriest, I definitely would have. If I was to do it again, I would just I'd probably not scrap the original, just keep in mind the bits I like, the conversation points and the jokes, but I just write it afresh as a script, and as you say, just try to make it as punchy, 20 minutes tops, tight and as punchy as possible. Yeah, definitely, yeah. Bro, all right, well, you sort of covered it there a little bit, but is there anything you're kind of looking to do next then? Is there something, I know you said you're working on Robopriest 2 or some sort of sequel to Robopriest. Is there other stuff you've got in mind as well, or? Yeah, I'm just trying to, obviously with the lockdown going on, I'm trying to get most of it, time is, it sounds horrible in a way, because obviously this is like, it's horrible what's going on at the minute, but also, just as much for your own sake, if you're somebody who enjoys doing these creative things, it's a way to keep yourself sane, to,
absolutely,
keep yourself from...
Oh, there'll be a lot of stuff written during this period, don't worry,
Yeah, I just don't want to sound like exploiting a tragedy or whatever.
No.
I'm trying to use as much of this free time as possible. Like, I've got the idea for the sequel to Robopriest. It's going to be called Beelzebub. Hopefully we can reunite the cast off that and do that. Again, we'll have to see what happens there. Kai, the guy I mentioned earlier, who did the special effects for Robopriest, sent me a link to a local production company who are looking for unsolicited like TV show specs, pilot ideas. So I've got something for that. Yeah. And then I've got like an idea for 2 plays I'm going to try and bash out, but it'll, I'll have to just see how everything plays out. But yeah, just trying to keep busy and make the most of the time, really.
Definitely. Bro. All right, that sounds great. Well, I mean, that kind of wraps up everything I wanted to speak to you today about. So, thanks for coming on, Josh, and we'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, no problem. Been a pleasure.
Thank you, mate.
Right, cheers. Definitely. Take care, mate. Speak to you in a bit. Bye.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that, guys. I found out a few things I didn't know in that conversation with Josh, and it was really interesting to just hear how he found working on a short film for the first time. So we're going to leave it there, and I hope to see you back next week.